Okay, good morning. It's, I guess, 9:05. I will call this meeting to order, and as customary for the board, we will begin our meeting with a moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so this morning I would just like to remind everyone that if you didn't watch us, we took some breaks and went over to the Patrick Henry building to be with the governor and during his announcement for our SOL test results for the last year. Please go and visit either his Facebook page to see that feed of that press conference, and or check out the press release after yesterday's event. I would also like just to take a moment. We didn't get to formally say goodbye to Mr. Rotherham, but would just like to have the opportunity this morning to recognize him. Obviously, he is no longer a member of this board, but just recognize him for his infinite contributions to the work that the board has done over the last 3 years. Mr. Rotherham came on at the same time that I did, and I'm just thankful not only for the work that he did in ensuring this board and its work was moving forward, but also for his friendship and mentorship and collaboration over the years. So just thankful for him. Superintendent Gullickson, did you have something you'd like to add to that?
Thank you, President Creasy. I also want to just acknowledge the value and benefit for our education system, our kids and our families from having Andy Rotherham on the board. He was our stalwart of making sure that this board stayed honest and kept our eyes on being student-centered and focused on what's best for kids. And a new challenge to you as our new board members to fill his shoes. And so we're very grateful for his service to the Commonwealth of Virginia, and thank you for the moment to recognize his accomplishments and dedication to our kids and this board.
Thank you. Ms. McPherson?
Yes, I'd just like to say I appreciate the fact that he was always willing to stand up to a challenge, even if it was unpopular. And he spoke for the teachers and the students, and he was very concerned that we get about the business of closing the honesty gap. And so for that, we're very grateful.
Thank you. And so the next item that we are going to be discussing this morning, or going to be addressing, is a resolution combating anti-Semitism and religious bigotry in Virginia public schools. And most of you are aware that on May 19th, 2025, Governor Youngkin issued an executive order 48 combating anti-Semitism and anti-religious bigotry in Virginia public schools and institutions of higher education. This order directs the Virginia Department of Education to develop resources that will help local school divisions to prevent, track, report, and follow up on incidents of anti-Semitism and anti-religious bigotry. In addition to the steps the board and the Department of Education have already taken, the board would like to issue a resolution that affirms the governor's leadership in this area and establishes the board's ongoing support of efforts to combat anti-Semitism and anti-religious bigotry in Virginia's public schools. So the resolution, as it is written in the end, says, therefore be it resolved that the Virginia Board of Education continues to build on and support the ongoing comprehensive work of the Virginia Department of Education, including providing division superintendents with actionable steps to ensure the intent of the Executive Order 48 through direct correspondence by Superintendent of Public Instruction, providing resources for education professionals and detailed guidance for curriculum developers, emphasizing the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, working definition of anti-Semitism, and for teaching and learning about the Holocaust and anti-Semitism. Finally, be it further resolved that the Virginia Board of Education stands ready to act against anti-Semitism and anti-religious bigotry in Virginia's public schools and classrooms. And so with that, I would like to entertain a motion to move this resolution.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this item? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you very much. So as we move forward here, is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So move. Second.
Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Staff has provided the board members with the draft minutes. You all have seen those. Is there a motion to approve the minutes as presented to the board?
So moved.
Second.
Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay, the board appreciates every month being able to be blessed with being able to feature our wonderful arts programs from across the Commonwealth. And today we have some musicians, special musicians with us. I will now ask Mr. Monk if he can provide us with an introduction of our guests.
This is the fun part, President Creasy. The Heritage High School Artist Guitar Ensemble from Loudoun County Schools, under the direction of Dr. Kevin V. Hill, known as Dr. V, is an audition group of students ranging from grades 10 through 12. Performance highlights from the 24-25 academic year include performing the U.S. National Anthem for Loudoun County Public School Board, the Yale School of Music Guitar Extravaganza in New Haven, Connecticut, and superior ratings from the Virginia Music Educators Association and the Virginia Guitar Directors Association Ensemble Assessment. Dr. V joined faculty of Heritage High School in 2005, and over the last 20 years he was named the 2014 Shenandoah University Teacher of the Year for Loudoun County Public Schools. He was presented with a Sir Winston Churchill Commemorative Crown by Helen Sanderson for his work in guitar education in 2017, and was chosen as the Joanne C. Edwards Distinguished Professor in the Arts at Marshall University. He's had several articles published nationally and internationally in the Professional Music Journals and is a nationally sought-after clinician and guest conductor. Dr. V currently serves as Vice President for the Virginia Guitar Directors Association and for the Association of Music Educators Council for Guitar Education. Today, the Heritage High School Artist Guitar Ensemble will perform works of Virginia composers, Summer Suite by Ramona Harmetz and Fiesta Mediterranea by Miroslav Lanchar. We hope you enjoy the performance.
for this opportunity to perform. And I want to also say not only that these composers are from Virginia, both of these composers from Loudoun County Public Schools. So Vermont Hartman's retired a couple of years ago, and Dr. Lomstar teaches at Parkview High School in Sterling. So that's kind of a cool thing. And they're tuning in while I'm talking. I also like to thank our assistant principal, Mr. Matthew Prentice, for being here. Thank you for your support. Yeah, that's it. So next, we're going to be going out there for a picture. Take your guitars, leader, anything else here, okay?
We are back, and we are going to begin the public comment section of our meeting. So before we begin our public comment section, as stated in the board's bylaws, it is the pleasure of the board to accept public comment on all matters related to public education. But I'd like to share a few comments about the matter before we begin. I just ask you to model professionalism, dignity, and respect for others as you share your comments today. When you begin, please provide your name, role, or affiliation and where you live in Virginia. And all remarks must be directed to the chair. Reminder that you have 3 minutes to speak. We have the screen over here that is green at 3 minutes. At 1 minute left, we have the screen turn yellow, and then when your time is up, the screen will turn red. We would ask that you please promptly close your remarks once the screen turns red and your time is up. If you do have written comments, please make sure that you provide them to Mr. Joe Crook up here if they are physical and you would like them passed out to the board. He can do that for you. If you do have comments that you would like to provide us electronically, you can do so at boe@doe.virginia.gov. And with that, I would like to ask Scott Braybrand, followed by Candace Lucas, to please come to the microphone. Thank you.
President Creasy, Superintendent Gullickson, and members of the Board of Education. My name is Scott Braybrand. I'm Executive Director for the Virginia Association of School Superintendents, and I live in Lynchburg, Virginia. This morning, I'm joined by our vast leadership. We have our President, Dr. Eli Gracie, Superintendent of Portsmouth Public Schools, our President-elect, Dr. Sarah Calvert, who is Superintendent of Caroline County Schools, and our Secretary-Treasurer, Dr. Relita White, Superintendent of Roanoke City Schools. Today, we're pleased to see the continuing support of school divisions through the School Construction Assistant Program grants. We appreciate those additional flexibilities and are hopeful more of our school divisions will be found eligible for that grant assistance. Thank you, Superintendent Gullickson. We also appreciate the updates around increased flexibility for board-approved courses that satisfy Virginia graduation requirements, especially for school divisions that have kids taking those IB courses. Thank you. We also welcome the final review of the high-quality work-based learning implementation guide. It's a key document for school divisions, and we've appreciated the collaboration with Superintendent Gullickson and the VDOE on this document. As we respectively requested last month, this year's seniors, however, should be able to meet their graduation requirements to the original 12 work-based learning experiences. The new 6 high-quality experiences weren't even defined until later in the spring and summer, before seniors had to make course selections back in January or February, nor were divisions in a place to be able to know those courses and experiences to offer them. This needed flexibility will allow Virginia seniors to graduate on time and allow school divisions a one-year transition to develop the needed work-based learning experiences. As always, we appreciate support and resources to help school divisions reach these high-quality work-based learning experiences for our seniors and all students. Finally, as you review and decide final cut scores for the SOLs this school year, we respectfully request the following based on transparency, fairness, and alignment. Transparency, we request a full review of the methodology of determining those cut scores, as well as the modeling and impact analysis of these cut scores on our students and schools be shared and reviewed publicly before any final decision is made. This means sharing how students, including by subgroup, and how each school division would have performed on these new cut scores on this year's SOL data, including impacts on accountability calculations. Without a thorough understanding of these cut scores and how they were developed and determined and their impact, our students, parents, and educators will not have the transparency needed to fully embrace these new goals. Fairness as well, we request, as we did for high-quality work-based experiences, that our seniors be held harmless this year who are taking the SOL test. Under the existing cut scores, they'd be held harmless. The current approach for our schools that have 4x4, seniors will be taking the SOL tests in the fall and have different cut scores than those in the spring. We also ask for alignment. Right now, different scores are going to mean different things at different grades. And for advanced mathematics, the cut score, right now, you'd have folks being automatically enrolled in advanced math who will now have scores of fail in basic. We ask you to keep the locally verified credit at 375. Thanks, as always, for your support, and we look forward to continuing to work with you.
Candace, Is followed by Wendy Little.
I guess this is for tall people. Okay, thank you. Good morning, board members. My name is Dr. Candace Lucas. I'm a licensed educator, licensed administrator, and I'm also a civil rights activist that works for underserved families regarding special education, specifically IDEA. IDEA is a civil rights law, and unfortunately, as you all know, Virginia is failing our families regarding civil rights as it relates to IDEA. I recently read the review regarding Loudoun County Public Schools having to return $29 million in IDEA funds back to the Virginia Department of Education for 1 year. 1 year. And they conveniently called it, them and their attorney, Sands Anderson, conveniently referred to it as a clerical error. Okay, if there is a clerical error that costs us $29 million, there's something wrong. And we know it was not a clerical error. In fact, I will tell you exactly what occurred with Loudoun County Public Schools because I warned them of the mismanagement, the embezzlement, the misallocation, as well as the misappropriation of IDEA Part B, 611, and 618 funding. All the way back in 2019 when we defended a child, a black male child with dyslexia who Loudoun refused to give an IEP to. Okay, they refused. And to give him an IEP and provide him services would have cost less than it cost to defend not giving him an IEP and services. Now, in Loudoun, you can go through their own budget for the last 7 years and you're going to come up with Part B IDEA funding fraud, approximately $457 million. Let that sink in. $457 million. Now, let me be honest. Loudoun is not the only one. I decided to check out Powhatan based on the Loudoun model. Powhatan has $24 million from 2019 to the present. $24 million in fraud. IDEA Part B. They violated the assurances that they signed in order to guarantee our children would receive those services. All of the money is going to law firms. Sands Anderson. You need to get their invoices. They bill for surveilling me. $1,300 an hour. They billed for calling hearing officers on behalf of school board employees, $150 an hour. They billed for writing IEPs in Goochland, Powhatan, Chesterfield, $450 an hour. This is not about public schools being underfunded. They're being grossly mismanaged. Thank you.
Okay, Wendy Little, followed by thank you. Keena McAvoy. Not here. LaWanda Travis, followed by Tracy Gibson.
Ms. Gibson isn't here.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, board and chair. My name is LaWanda Travis. I'm from King and Queen County, Virginia. Unfortunately, I'm back again, and you'll probably see me every month. I am back again asking for your assistance and your help with doing an investigation and making people responsible for the ethnical oath, moral oath that we all have taken. As our president once said, and I'm speaking about Obama, democracy is not free. If you want what is due to you, we have to fight for it. Unfortunately, I went to a school board meeting last night, and as an active duty service member, was threatened to be thrown out because I was helping citizens do a petition for trespassing on public grounds that my tax dollars pay for. Unfortunately, we had parents come forward. Y'all have to excuse me, it hurts my heart to even say this. With physical abuse, verbal abuse to students in the county, as well as teachers being retaliated against for trying to assist their students and give them the proper education. And for teachers to worry about their jobs because they're doing the right thing is totally appalling right now. I fight for my country to make sure that we all are afforded those rights. And to get thrown out of a meeting for assisting parents and students, that even my grandchildren who were once going to this school, who I had to pull that have IEPs, it is appalling to me. And it is time for our state to help us with holding these school boards and these superintendents accountable for their actions. Unfortunately, like the doctor right here said, we are in the same boat with misappropriation with funds, miseducation of children. But the community is coming out right now and speaking against it. And as it's happening, we are being banned from our own school, not to talk to the teachers, not to assist our children. At some point, it has to stop. I had to at least call the sheriff and tell him verbatim tell him a law and a code from the VDOE and from the state that we are public citizens and you can't trespass us for merely meeting and talking after a school board meeting. It is abuse of power. I ask that you all would at least try to take a look at that and assist us. Unfortunately, I'm finding out that not only is King and Queen going through it, but several counties around me. I thank you for your time and look forward to seeing you again.
Okay. Is Christopher Gibson here?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Bo Dickinson.
Thank you. Chair Creasy, Superintendent Gullickson, and members of the board. My name is Bo Dickinson, Social Studies Supervisor in Rockingham County Public Schools, and a member of the Executive Board of the Virginia Social Studies Leaders Consortium, otherwise known as VSSLC. VSSLC and the Virginia Association for Teaching, Learning, and Leading, otherwise known as VATLL, recently submitted a joint letter opposing a statewide mandate to move world geography to the 8th grade. The new history social science SOLs adopted by this board in 2023 make clear that sequencing is a local decision. Therefore, a mandated course sequence would contradict those standards and unfortunately risk undermining our collaborative work with the department. Such a change would also push civics down a grade, forcing divisions to teach it to both 7th and 8th grade students simultaneously during a one-year transition. This would create staffing, scheduling, and budget challenges for a majority of school divisions across the entire Commonwealth of Virginia. Now, despite these objections, we do support the idea of expanding advanced coursework, which is why we propose an honors civics as a strong and exciting alternative to this proposal. This course would actually raise rigor, deepen civic engagement, and prepare students for really active citizenship in a meaningful way. It would also align perfectly with Virginia 250 and the upcoming celebration of American democracy, especially here in the Commonwealth of Virginia, as you know, the cradle of American history. I'm here to share a draft for Honor Civics that was developed by Mrs. Kim Dove. Mrs. Dove is a respected civics educator in Rockingham County, where I serve as supervisor, and she's also a recent gubernatorial appointee to the Library of Virginia Board. Her proposal outlines what an honor civics course could look like. I submit it today for your review alongside the joint letter from VSSLC and VATLL. Thank you for your time and your commitment to social studies education across the Commonwealth of Virginia. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Tatus, she's not here either, is she? No. Dan Zacharias, followed by Kakim Fung.
Good morning, President Creasy and members of the board. Dan Zacharias. I'm director of the Old Dominion Association of Church School, and something got in my throat just as I came up, pardon me. And I just want to talk to you briefly about what we believe is a serious contradiction in Virginia education policy that has the potential to adversely affect our churches and schools. And to do so, I'd like to propose what I hope will sound to you like an absurd hypothetical. So let's imagine a first grade classroom, 6-year-old children, and they are in a private school, not a public school, possibly even a religious or a church-run school. And that first grade classroom is being generously subsidized by the Virginia Department of Education directly. Thousands, maybe even tens of thousands of dollars in taxpayer funding going to a private or religious first grade classroom. In addition, you have Department of Ed licensing inspectors inspecting that first grade classroom regularly. And that school is made to align their first grade curriculum with the Virginia Standards of Learning. Now, all of that I've stated is not happening in Virginia, and I've never heard any public education or private education advocates propose such a thing. I would hope it would sound absurd. And yet, if you change it from 6-year-old to 4-year-old children, that's exactly what we're doing. We had a situation in one of our schools. Very often in our schools, the 4-year-olds and the 5-year-olds are in rooms that are side by side in the same hallway. And the licensing inspector can inspect the 4-year-old room, but she has no legal purview to inspect the 5-year-old room. And yet, we have occasions where inspectors insist to see what they're not legally allowed to look at. We had one of our schools in Northern Virginia recently. The inspector demanded to see everything pre-K to 12. Fortunately, the administrator successfully stood his ground. She even threatened to call the police. So we feel like there are, this portends some bad problems down the road, and we hope that you understand our concerns and appreciate the opportunity to express them to you this morning. Thank you.
Kakim Fung, followed by Javier Cabezas.
Good morning. My name is Kakim Fung, and I'm an educator living in Chesterfield, Virginia. I wanted to comment on the proposed 25-26 proficiency cut scores for the reading and math SOLs. I believe it would be mixed messaging to raise the cut scores with the SOLs without also looking at some of the substitute tests that can be used in place of SOLs for graduation. As the public substitute test document shows, students would need a 28 on the CLEP college algebra test, a 30 on the CLEP biology test, and a 60 as a sum of 2 CLEP US history tests to earn verified credit, where the minimum is a 20 and the maximum is 80, leading to less than 20% of the possible points needed to be correct for mainly multiple choice CLEP exams. This leads to pretty much anyone being able to reach the threshold to be able to earn verified credits without really mastering the material. I would know because I've piloted CLEP before with multiple students who have struggled to pass the corresponding SOLs multiple times, many of which have had limited English proficiency. The evidence can be seen by the big climbs in on-time graduation rates of schools here in the capital of Virginia. The extremely low thresholds for CLEP exams allow for students to basically click their way through and still earn their verified credit and graduate. If the SOL cut scores get raised to the levels that the proposal states, many school divisions will pivot to substitute tests, possibly the CLEP substitute test, because previous boards have approved the low cut scores that require less than 20% of the points correct. This could lead to financial inequities, as school systems that can afford to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars for CLEP exams would be able to graduate more students than schools that cannot afford to pay for the CLEP exams because of the low thresholds currently in place. This is something that the board should keep in mind if the raise in the standards for SOL tests but not for others that have low cut scores. Thank you.
Javier Cabezas. And then Jason, no last name.
Good morning. My name is Javier Cabezas. I'm the high school math specialist for Henrico County Public Schools, but today I'm addressing the board as the parent of 3 Virginia students regarding the proposed mathematics SOL cut scores. As a parent, I understand the importance of high expectations for our children. My primary concern is about the mismatch between these proposed cut scores and the recently passed legislation around mathematics placement based on SOL performance, particularly for fellow parents who do not have my professional background. House Bill 2686 was ratified earlier this year, which requires automatic enrollment in advanced or accelerated mathematics of any student who receives a score on an end-of-year Standards of Learning Mathematics assessment in grades 5 through 8 that is in the statewide grade-level upper quartile. It also requires school divisions to notify families of the acceleration and provide an opportunity to opt out of the acceleration. How will the proposed cut scores work in tandem with that legislation? This past school year, the upper quartile score for grade 7 mathematics was a 425, and the upper quartile score for grade 8 mathematics was a 421. Both of those scores are below the proposed cut score of 430 for each course. We are now legislated to advance and accelerate students who are simultaneously deemed to be less than proficient. How does a family make heads or tails of the competing messaging about their students' performance on Virginia assessments? I'm also concerned about the clarity behind what the cut scores represent. The proposed cut scores are not uniform across all tests. They generally decrease from grades 3 through 8 with a sudden uptick for Algebra 1 and Geometry. Why not use a consistent numerical value for proficiency? In 2019, all tests use a cut score of 400 to indicate proficiency. For Algebra 1 and Geometry, this equated to 20 out of 45 correct items. For Algebra 2, it was 24 out of 45 questions. I was surprised to see a departure from 400 as the proficient mark for each test. Rather than changing the number of correct items needed to achieve proficiency as has been done historically, the cut score itself has changed. To help clarify what the new scores are, can the board make explicit what the number of items correct needed to achieve proficiency on each SOL mathematics test is? This would be more forthright and honest for Virginia families to understand what it means to be proficient in mathematics and help families with students in various courses interpret results more clearly. And while cut scores recommendations have been made for the line between fail and proficient, is there a proposed change to what qualifies for a locally awarded verified credit, which currently sits at 375? In recent years, there has been an effort to increase transparency and simplify communication for parents and families. I do not see how the proposed cut scores in their current form are any clearer for families when it comes to messaging about student proficiency in mathematics. I thank you for your time today, and I look forward to seeing what adjustments to proposed cut scores will be implemented before final review and adoption. Thank you.
Jason, no last name, followed by Nina Schroeder. Neither here. Okay. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak publicly before we close the public comment section of our meeting? If you do, you can come up to the microphone. Okay. That being said, we will close the public comment period of our meeting and move to the consent agenda, please. Item A, final review. Item B, first and final review of meeting dates. Is there a motion to waive first review and approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Okay. To the action items section, please. Item C. Dr. Wallace? As Dr. Wallace is coming up and getting prepared for her item this morning, I would just like to remind everyone that the board had a very robust discussion and also had quite a few documents that I would encourage all interested parties to please review carefully yesterday. So anything that you see on our agenda from yesterday, clearly we had a long and robust discussion about a few items on our agenda. And I would just encourage everyone to please look at the corresponding posted documents, as well as following along with that discussion on our YouTube feed. So, Dr. Wallace, please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, President Creasy, members of the board, and Superintendent Gullickson. I bring before you for the second time the approval of the Board of Education approved courses to satisfy graduation requirements for the Standard and Advanced Studies diplomas in Virginia Public Schools. This document offers some flexibility to students in the courses that they can take. It is already an approved document, and we would like to just have approval for the 4 bulleted changes, which primarily updates language to allow for IB Economics to count as the Economics and Personal Finance course for students, which increases flexibility in those meeting those graduation requirements. There were some other minor changes as well, but that is the main takeaway there. And the Superintendent for Public Instruction recommends that this be approved today.
Any questions for Dr. Wallace on this item? Dr. Northern.
Yeah, I'm just curious, given our seat time flexibility regulations now, is there anything that we need to put in here to say how those seat time flexibility policies may impact our graduation requirements or anything of that nature?
Yeah, I don't think it's necessary at this time because, you know, that's a different legislative piece. And I mean, we certainly could at a future time once it's finally through and there's more understanding, but there already exists the 140 clock hour waiver requirement for classes that require standard and advanced or, you know, verified credits for standard and advanced diplomas. So that's been in effect for, I don't know how long, but for a very long time and already exists. So this really doesn't impact seat time flexibility at all. That's going to be a local option. Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Do we need to add a reference to seat time in here somewhere, just in order to make sure that people are keeping that at their...
do a technical edit.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Is everybody good with that? Okay, thank you.
We can do that.
So, given the need for a technical edit, so we will make sure that that occurs. Is there a motion to approve the updates in addition to the technical edit to the Board of Education approved courses to satisfy graduation requirements for the Standard and Advanced Studies diploma in Virginia Public Schools?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion here of this item? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
And Madam President,
Yes, please.
the technical edit, I would presume, would read something like at the bottom of page 1, the course substitutions within this document do not impede other legislation, such as seat time flexibility, and we can link out to that legislation.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, Dr. Hollins. Sorry, didn't mean to hit the mic.
Good morning, President Creasy, members of the board, and Superintendent Gullickson. As shared during first review in July, I bring before you for final review the revised guidelines for policies on concussions in students. The Code of Virginia, as well as General Assembly legislation, directs the board to develop biennially and update school policies related to guidelines for policies on concussions in students that provides guidance to school divisions on the development and implementation of concussion policies that align with those requirements. We also include recommendations to assist school personnel in learning to recognize the signs of potential concussion and ensuring that a student who has been diagnosed with a concussion receives the appropriate care and attention at school to aid in their recovery. The department engaged with key stakeholders for the development of these guidelines, including the Virginia High School Athletic League, institutions of higher education, professionals in the field of neuroscience, and partners representing local school division athletic training. Upon board approval, the revised guidelines will be shared in multiple ways, including posting on the health-related legislation guidance documents, shared with stakeholders through the Virginia Education Update, and posted and shared with content area specialists across the Commonwealth. The department will also continue to support this work by ongoing professional development and technical assistance that focuses on team and training for traumatic brain injuries for school-based personnel. The Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends that the Virginia Board of Education receive for final review the proposed revisions to the guidelines for policies on concussions in students.
Just a itty-bitty issue. There are a couple of places that need to be cleaned up. So for technical edits, I think there's some spacing issues and stuff like that. Some words that are not spaced out. So let's make sure that we, do a review for technical edits on this one, because I just noticed that. But does anybody have any questions for Dr. Highlands on this one? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the proposed revisions to the guidelines for policies on concussions in students?
So move. Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson? Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
so much.
Dr. Williams, you're up.
Good morning. President Creasy, members of the board, and Superintendent Gullickson, my name is Anthony Williams, Director of the Office of Career and Technical Education, and I stand before you to request final review of the CTE High Quality Work-Based Learning Implementation Guide. During the July 31st board meeting, we presented for first review the CTE High Quality Work-Based Learning Implementation Guide. We have received stakeholder feedback in order to clarify the criteria for high-quality work-based learning experiences. Stakeholder feedback following the July 31st board meeting is located on page 21 of Attachment 4. The summary of all revisions to the implementation guide as a result of this feedback is located in Attachment 3. And the red line version of the High Quality Work-Based Learning Guide is located in Attachment 2. At this time, I would like to briefly review the red line revisions of the CTE High Quality Work-Based Learning Implementation Guide. So starting on page 1, the introduction. We added to the second paragraph in order to recognize the importance of experiential learning opportunities that may not qualify as a hands-on experience. As recommended by the Virginia Manufacturers Association, it is important to note that artificial intelligence is shifting hands-on learning to include interacting with, maintaining, troubleshooting, and programming intelligent machines rather than solely performing manual labor. Page 2, redefining high-quality work-based learning. Sustained engagement with industry professionals and/or post-secondary subject matter experts in high-demand fields is a key component that ensures work-based learning experiences are high quality. The Virginia Board of Workforce Development is responsible for the approval of the high-demand occupations list. The Virginia Office of Education Economics develops the methodology in consultation with the Virginia Board of Workforce Development and hosts the website, but the high-demand fields are solely defined by the Virginia Board of Workforce Development. Page 6, the high-quality work-based learning checklist. CTE completers, by definition, must successfully complete 2 sequential CTE courses and satisfy all requirements for high school graduation. The removal of completer provides flexibility for students that have successfully completed 2 sequential CTE courses but have not met all requirements for high school graduation. Also on page 6, we discussed at the July board meeting there was a need to clarify the criteria for the 6 high-quality work-based learning experiences. The July draft included the requirement for students to earn a National Certificate of Completion, industry-recognized credential, or attain post-secondary credit. This section has been revised to remove this mandatory requirement by providing students with opportunities to earn National Certificate of Completions, industry recognized credential, or post-secondary credit. This revision provides flexibility for school divisions that aligns with the point system approved for 3E readiness employment. Page 8, developing work-based learning programs. We revised the monitoring and evaluation section to include metrics for assessing program effectiveness. Metrics such as student job placement, students trained, program costs, and cost per participant align to our statewide metrics for measuring program quality in career and technical education. The Office of Career and Technical Education is responsible for submitting annual data as part of the Virginia Works Commonwealth Workforce Metrics Data Dashboard. This revision establishes consistent metrics at the local and state levels. Page 10, Work-Based Learning Coordinator Designee. Revisions recognize the need for each school division to have a work-based learning coordinator or designee, and that the work-based learning coordinator or designee can include the CTE teacher of record. Getting down to the end, the appendix section, toolkit resource links have been added to include the Virginia 2024 High Demand Occupations Dashboard and the Virginia College and Career Outcomes Explorer. We have also, for clarity, included additional forms that are required for work-based learning experiences. Technical edits include the remaining revisions of the CTE High Quality Work-Based Learning Guide. Upon approval, the revised guide will be submitted to the Virginia Regulatory Town Hall for a 30-day public comment period pursuant to the Administrative Process Act. A superintendent's memorandum will notify school divisions of the high-quality work-based learning implementation guide and where the document will be posted on the Virginia Department of Education's Career and Technical Education website. In conclusion, the Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends the Virginia Board of Education receive for final review the proposed revisions of the CTE High Quality Work-Based Learning Implementation Guide for school year 25-26 and delegate authority for the department to make any final technical revisions.
Okay, any questions for Dr. Williams here?
Yes.
Ms. McPherson?
I noticed that we referenced the entire program as being high quality work-based learning. But in the dashboard of the occupations, we go to high demand categories of work. So high demand categories of work are not necessarily the high quality fields. So my concern is that what about the students that really ought to be preparing for the high quality work as opposed to just high demand? I realize high demand, we need a lot of people in a lot of categories, but part of what we're trying to do is to make sure that the students are prepared for the new innovative technologies that are coming along. So why couldn't we have the credit band for high quality as well as high demand? Because what I don't want to see happen is a lot of students end up in professions that are not going to pay them a lot of money when they have the skill set to perform them. So can it not be an either or, a high demand or a high quality workforce training program?
I do know we discussed this quite a bit last month. Dr. Williams, do you want to give us the high level of that?
Yes, sure. I can tell you now that we are currently working on a consolidated definition of high quality across all workforce agencies. The reality is the way that we define high quality, we are aligning to the Virginia Office of Education Economics High Demand Occupations Dashboard that was published in 2024. As we know, those occupations are going to be changing approximately every 2 years. And the purpose of that is to align to CTE courses and programs and industry recognized credentials or credentials of value. And so the goal is to promote those opportunities, whether industry credentialing or work-based learning experiences for students. These are typically going to be occupations that from the spectrum may be, we used the example last meeting of child care workers. They are essential in the Commonwealth of Virginia, but they may not be high wage occupations, but they're critical occupations in which we have coursework and opportunities and high demand credentials that align to those. Very diligently with our other workforce agencies to ensure a consolidated definition, and I assure you that there will be some changes in the near future.
Mr. Monk?
Just want to, I share those concerns because I think at a certain point you're chasing your tail, because if you're only looking at a specific sector that is currently high demand, you work in that, and then in a couple of years, if you're forgetting some other sectors, then you're going to see that pop up, then we're going after that category, so I appreciate the looking into that.
Can we just get a
Dr.
kid's
Northern?
credit?
So are they only considered getting credit in high demand if there is a IRC, an industry recognized credential tied to that profession? That's kind of a silly question, but I think that's a big point I'm not sure about.
Well, what we have provided the flexibility in this revision is to provide opportunities. And those opportunities could be towards a national certificate of completion, which could be an apprenticeship, for example.
Okay.
It could be an industry recognized credential. It could also be post-secondary credit. And so once again, we're still in alignment with 3E, attempting to promote industry recognized credentials and the ability for students to earn dual enrollment credit.
So in other words, a waiter, a waitress, a janitor, I'm looking at the VOE high demand, honestly, and those are the top three, right? That we need waiters, waitresses, janitors, cleaners. I mean, that's what we see, what's high demand. So we're not inadvertently motivating kids, right? They get no credit, right? There's no IRC tied to being a waitress or a janitor or some of these other high demand careers that we definitely need, but we're not incentivizing that because there's no IRC tied to that, correct?
I could go even further to say there's not a specific CTE course or program
That's
that is
tied to
tied to
that.
that. And
Okay.
so one of the requirements that's recognized in the checklist is going to be the connection to the CTE coursework. And so there's going to be a direct connection to state-approved CTE coursework. In that particular example, that does not exist.
Okay, so that's how we're getting around it a little bit, because there aren't certifications tied to some of these. Okay,
That is correct.
thank you.
Question.
Ms.
So if-
McPherson?
Thank you. If a student had an opportunity for work in an industry where they were doing repairing robots, okay, and I don't necessarily see that on this list. I mean, I could probably get somebody to decide to keep from being eliminated that one of these categories met that, but could not a school division superintendent or a principal recommend to your office that that person be allowed to get the 1.25 credit because that is a high demand, high quality internship or apprenticeship?
Didn't we discuss last month that there will be some localized needs that this would provide flexibility for in that regard?
Well, I want to make sure I'm getting clarification here. Are you referring to the point system for 3E readiness and the 1.25 that's being allocated for a student that completes
Yeah,
the
it was,
IRC
because
and the
that's what
work-based learning
follows in your
experience?
slide.
Okay. So for the student that completes the IRC and high-quality work-based learning experience, then once again, those credentials and experiences have to be related to the CTE coursework. That's part of the criteria. And so we've identified and crosswalked the coursework to the high demand occupations. So we have clearly made that visible and public facing to our stakeholders, students, parents, business and industry professionals. And so that correlation is there. And so students have the opportunity to not only complete the coursework, which could lead to post-secondary credit, it could lead to an industry recognized credential, or a high quality work-based learning experience. All of those options are still available.
Dr. Northern?
I just wanted to bring up the point that was made earlier in public comment. I mean, are this year's seniors going to be, like, when does this come into play?
As approved in February, the 25-26 school year will be the year for implementation.
Okay, so, I mean, that was a good point, right, that he made. In other words, some of these weren't initiated or figured out, right, until these seniors were already making these decisions. I mean, should we allow any flexibility for this year's seniors?
I would leave that to the board's discretion, but I would also note that there are other opportunities for work-based learning experiences in addition to industry credentialing requirements that are also an option for graduation. So keeping in mind students have the opportunity to earn industry credentialing opportunities or participate in, I think it was honors, IB, dual enrollment, or high quality work-based learning. So there are options that are available for students to still meet and satisfy these requirements as well as other CTE requirements.
Okay, so there's enough flexibility where they're not going to get in a trap, in other words, this is not going to prevent them, because
We believe that there are options available.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Mr. Monk?
So you answered, or you kind of hit on what my next question was. So example, if we do have someone who completed one of the previous, recognized work-based learning opportunities, so service, for instance, that would no longer qualify them. So they would, during their high school or academic career, they would then have to complete two. So one under the previous recognition and then one under the 6. Is that what I'm understanding now, in order to graduate?
Yes, and I think what we have to understand, just to provide some background context of how we landed on the final approval for 3E, is that there was no criteria or guidelines for the previous work-based learning experiences. And so did they truly meet or satisfy a true service learning experience? We don't know. We have a concentrated focus now for work-based learning that's high quality, in which they're validated by industry professionals. Students are receiving feedback directly from industry professionals, and they're correlated directly to career and technical education coursework. That was missing previously. And so we have a measure now that we did not have before. So it's difficult to say through data whether they're completing it over, because that was the challenge, is that we were missing the quality. Now we have established that metric, and we have a means of supporting students in the near future.
Mr. Monk?
Completely agree. I think the establishment of that is super helpful, but I would just caution, I do think maybe that 1 year of latitude may be helpful. Wanted to share, thankful for the flexibility around the work-based learning coordinator position, knowing that different divisions have different capacity there, and the inclusion of SAE after the initial draft. And then also wanted to ask a question around the metrics that are included here of what is a high-quality work-based learning opportunity. It shares the number of placements, and so just from a high level, thinking rural communities, there may not be a high number of placement for some of those opportunities. How does that factor into that's new?
We're not measuring for quantity. We're measuring to have a tracking mechanism to determine what a locality, how students are performing in any given locality. So this isn't a measure that's going to be used in a negative sense, not by any means, but at the same time, we're able to determine whether a division is making significant progress across multiple high-quality work-based learning experiences. And once again, this is data that we're responsible for reporting annually, but we're doing it from the state perspective. We don't have access to what the localities are truly doing. We're looking at a sense of how many students are completing CTE courses in general. But it would be great to know, of those students, how many are actually being placed at the local level. So it really does provide a more reliable data source in the future.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the CTE High Quality Work-Based Learning Implementation Guide?
Second.
Unless you think that's it. Do it later. Okay. Is there any discussion of this item before we take the vote? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green's not here. Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton? Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item F. Ms. Berta.
Good morning, President Creasy, members of the board. Superintendent Gullickson. Christina Berta, Chief Operations Officer. Before you today is the first and final review recommendations for 2 literary fund loan applications. As a reminder, in order for school divisions to be able to apply for loans through the literary fund, VDOE conducts open application periods. We have conducted several, one in fiscal year 2023, 2 during fiscal year 2024, and 1 in fiscal year 2025. 2 school divisions, Giles County and Pittsylvania County, have both applied during the 2024 and 2025 application periods respectively, and have submitted all of the necessary and required documentation needed to support their requested loan to be released by the board. This item includes a request for release for Giles County for the purpose of renovation of an existing classroom and addition of an accommodating up to 11 classrooms, renovating and replacing an elevator, upgrading a safe schools entrance, and improvements at Macy McClarty Elementary School. Giles County is requesting a release of the literary fund for the project in the amount of $12,475,000 payable over 30 years and is eligible for a 2% annual loan interest rate. The project application is attachment 1 in your board item. Secondly, a loan requested by Pittsylvania County for the purpose of constructing 4 additional classrooms at Union Hall Elementary School. They are requesting a loan in the amount of $3,549,838 payable over 18 years and are eligible for a 2% annual loan interest rate, and their full application is attachment 2 in your agenda item. The Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends the board waive first review and approve the release of the literary fund loans requested by Giles County and Pittsylvania County based on the loan amounts, terms, and eligible annual interest rates requested in their loan applications and indicated in the executive summary of your agenda item. Happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Bird, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
So, which, was it Pennsylvania, I think that you said? Okay, I'm sorry. It's Giles. So, upgrading a safe schools entrance. Couldn't they apply for a grant, a safe schools grant that would cover that, and then maybe some of this could go towards another piece of a project that they have?
Potentially. They're probably trying to leverage the same contractor, which is why
Okay.
they're joining it all together. It's part of
Okay.
an overall renovation, so
Understood.
there may be a time value of
Okay,
all
understood.
inclusive.
Just wanted to bring that to light in case.
Yep.
Dr. Northern, did you have a question?
Yeah, I'm just looking at Giles County. It says up to 11 classrooms may be added to accommodate the anticipated growth within the attendance zone. So I'm just curious, what's going on in Giles County that they think they're going to be anticipated growth within their attendance zone?
It's a great question. I don't know that answer right off the top. I can certainly go back and find out so that you can have that information.
Yeah, I'm actually very curious because
Okay.
we're seeing declines across the state and
Yep.
the nation, so.
Yep, I will find out.
I guess one more question around this. Let's just say, accommodate, this language says accommodating up to 11 classrooms. Let's say they do 4, but they have the money for the 11. Do they send that back to us?
It's another great question. I will
Because
find out.
we need to make sure that we're
Yep.
accounting for that
Yep.
very strictly, please.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions or comments here? So does that mean that we need to hold on this, or can we go ahead and get those questions answered sufficiently?
I'm happy to do whatever the pleasure of the board is, if you're comfortable approving it with
Yeah.
those responses, or we can delay.
If it's okay with the board, I'd like to get those answers for Giles County, my question and Dr. Northern's question. So if we could please just pause on on 1. I'm happy to go ahead and entertain a motion on the Pittsylvania County. So if we could separate those two,
Sure.
please. I'd like to entertain a motion on the Pennsylvania County request and hold on the Giles County request. So if someone would like to make a motion in that regard, I would appreciate it.
So
Mr. Monk?
moved.
I'll move for the Pennsylvania and hold on Giles to waive first review and approve.
Thank you. Is there a second?
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion here? So we are holding on Giles County, and we're only moving on the Pittsylvania County as first and final. Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Berta. Sorry to complicate your day. Mr. Chapman?
Thank you, President Creasy, members of the board, Superintendent Gullickson. Item G is one of the board's regular items regarding periodic reviews of regulations. As a brief refresher, under the Administrative Process Act, agencies are required to conduct periodic reviews on chapters of regulations every 4 years. Before about 2024, the agency had never done periodic reviews of regulations, so this is part of an ongoing effort to make sure that the responsibilities under statute are fulfilled. This month, we would like the board to close out 4 periodic reviews, and if I'm correct, this is the full balance of all the periodic reviews that we have requested over the last year and a half or so. It's been quite an adventure for the board, but in these chapters, we have 3 chapters we're requesting some very minor amendments to. Chapter 441, the regulations governing the employment of professional personnel. Chapter 560, which is the regulations governing the reporting of acts of violence and substance abuse in schools, and Chapter 740, the regulations governing nutritional guidelines for competitive food sold in Virginia public schools. And the issues underlying these are extremely common, and between them, basically these chapters were promulgated some number of years ago. There have been a few statutory updates, and we would like to bring back to the board and a few amendments in order to account for the statutory changes. Again, that will be the subject of a new action. This is just asking for permission to close the periodic reviews. We will bring full strike-throughs of the edits, but we expect those to be really minor in order to bring the regulations in alignment with statute. One chapter, 660, which is the regulations governing the enrollment of students committed to the Department of Juvenile Justice, we expect to be more extensive. And we will likely bring that back in a full regulatory process. We think this is likely beyond what we can do in a fast-track rulemaking. And the rationale there, the reason is because the statutory change was a little bit more extensive. The department that was referenced in those regulations no longer exists. I think the Department of Juvenile Corrections, is that the right term, Joe? Yeah, thanks. And so as a result, there's some interactions between agencies in that chapter that really need to be rethought. We have already begun that work with internal staff. To change very much of the underlying policy, but just the extent of the revisions is going to be a little bit more substantial. I expect that's going to take about a year and a half to 2 years to complete for the full regulatory action. That's the summary of the changes. We are asking that the board waive first review and approve the closing of the periodic reviews, again with the regulatory actions to actually make the change will be coming at a future meeting.
Any questions for Mr. Chapman on this one? Is there a motion to waive first review and approve the closing of the periodic reviews on the regulatory chapters identified in this item as presented to the board?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson? Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you, Mr. Chapman.
Thank you.
And item H, please.
Thank you, President Creasy. This is a regulatory action that we expect to, is really just an alignment matter. A few months ago, the board had approved the repeal of Chapter 150 and moving that into Chapter 720, which is the regulations governing local schools and school boards, school divisions and school boards. In the process of that action, going through the regulatory process, so 150 has not been repealed yet. We're still working that out. In order to facilitate that change, we need to take one additional definition from 150 and move that into 720. The section of code that's referenced in the title, which is 22.1-288.2, contains a reference to the board's definition of a disciplinary record. And so we want to make sure that this definition from the current Chapter 150 that's still active goes into 720 in order for that statute to make sense, in order for there to be no drop in board policy. So again, this is a zero-sum game on terms of board policy. It's a straight, even line. But in order to facilitate the repeal of Chapter 150, we would just like to move this definition as well into, from the chapter that's being repealed into 720, where the other, the remnants of 150 are going. The recommendation, again, is to waive first review and approve this regulatory action.
Any questions for Mr. Chapman on this item? Is there a motion to waive first review and approve the regulatory changes described in the item and delegate to VDOE staff the authority to make changes necessary to comply with the Administrative Process Act or the Virginia Register Act?
So moved.
Any comments here? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Ms. McDaniel, you're up.
Good morning, President Creasy, Vice President Hanson, Superintendent Gullickson, and members of the board. I'm Sophia McDaniel, the Director of Innovative Models and Policy. Today, in front of you, I'm presenting item I, the first and final review of the guidelines for graduation requirements, local alternative paths to the standard units of credit, otherwise known as the alternatives to the 140 clock hour requirement, to include requirements of seat time flexibility under House Bill 1477. As you know, Virginia law has long allowed local school divisions certain flexibilities in meeting the 140 clock hour requirement for standard units of credit. These pathways include locally developed options such as independent study, work-based learning, or demonstrated achievement. In 2024, the General Assembly expanded this flexibility through House Bill 1477, which created the concept of seat time flexibility. This legislation directed the board to provide local school boards maximum flexibility to waive existing instructional clock hour requirements by developing alternative instructional time models to allow for the design and implementation of new instructional time models for all students. In response, the department developed the Seat Time Flexibility and Innovation Action Kit, which this board unanimously approved in May of 2025. This action kit provides divisions with practical tools, including resources, a notice form for requesting flexibility, and a monitoring template to track student outcomes. The guidelines before you today incorporate these new provisions into the guidelines for graduation requirements, local alternative paths to standard units of credit, otherwise known as alternatives to the 140 clock hour requirement, as required by the legislation. The superintendent recommends that the board approve this item on first and final review. This action fulfills Enactment Clause 3 of House Bill 1477 and ensures that staff can provide timely guidance to school divisions as they plan and implement seat time flexibility. Upon approval of this item, department staff will emphasize strong communication and support for the field. Office of Innovation staff have developed resources for implementation to include newsletters, an updated innovation webpage, monthly lunch and learns, and office hours. These supports are to ensure transparency and provide ongoing support to the field. Lastly, upon approval, it will be hosted on the Virginia Regulatory Town Hall and linked on the VDOE webpage for ease of access. There's no fiscal or human resources impact associated with this action, and I respectfully recommend the board's approval of this item on first and final review.
Okay, any questions from Ms. McDaniel here? Dr. Northern.
Does it just boil down to, I know that you just read a lot of things to us, but does it just boil down to that the seat time flexibility is not actually already in the earlier guidance to the alternatives to the clock hour? Okay, great. It's a cleanup.
Just conforming to legislation being enacted.
Thank you.
So it's simple as just adding that because it was adopted by the General Assembly and signed by the governor. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Is Is there a motion to approve this item on first and final review to ensure enactment clause 3 of House Bill 1477 is met, and so that staff may provide guidance to the field in planning for and implementing seat time flexibility pursuant to House Bill 1477, and additionally allow staff to place a notation in the guidance document governing certain provisions of the regulations establishing standards for accrediting public schools in Virginia, to direct readers to refer to this document on local alternative paths to standard units of credit.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you, Ms. McDaniel. And Mr. Gilstrap is up. Superintendent Gullickson?
I just want to thank Ms. McDaniel for all of her hard work. This has been a year plus in the making, and so we're very excited to now roll out seat time flex notice opportunities to divisions and especially principals. They've been eagerly awaiting this, so thank you to the board, and we'll keep you all apprised over the coming months on adoptions.
And I cannot wait to go visit school divisions to see this in action, which we will be doing soon, this fall. Thank you. Mr. Gilstrap.
Good morning, President Creasy, Superintendent Gullickson, and members of the board. What I bring to you today is a new assessment test. The proposed recommendation from the ABTEL board is to replace the discontinued Praxis Family Consumer Science 5122 test with the new Praxis Family and Consumer Science 5123 and set a passing score of 151 to earn a Family and Consumer Science endorsement on a teacher license. The new assessment was designed in partnership with teachers, teacher educators, higher education, content specialists to reflect the career and technical knowledge required to teach family and consumer science. The test aligns with state and national standards, including standards, family and consumer science teacher standards, revised in 2018, and the National Association of State Administrators Family Consumer Science. This is a new assessment. ABTEL is recommending that the data review be conducted after 1 year to determine if the passing score is that's provided the greatest opportunity for teachers earning a professional and maintaining rigor. I can tell you that this assessment is already out in the field for other states, and right now we're seeing about a 94% pass rate on the new assessment, which is higher than what the old assessment was. I will say that that is not just a first-time assessment. That is an overall, whether or not a person attains a passing score ever. Furthermore, we also would ask that this be a final review today. The assessment that we currently have in place expires, and we would like to get this on our books. The Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends that the Board of Education replace Praxis Family and Consumer Science 5122 test with the Praxis Family and Consumer Science 5123 and establish the cut score at 151. I will also mention, upon adoption by the board, the written communication will notify school divisions, educator preparation programs of the approval of the new passing score at 151. The new passing score will be updated on the Professional Educator Assessment Resource document on the video website. That is something that we have started to include in these. This will be a step that we normally do separate, but it's a wasted step for you all, so we will do them all in one step. And the board's current guidance document, the assessment requirements, that'll be posted for 30 days on the town hall for public comment. This has already gone through review with ABTEL, and I kindly ask that you approve this.
Ms. Kilgore, this is your area of expertise. Would you like to make a comment?
It's my area of expertise, and I'm glad to continue believing in this curriculum, and I think it's wonderful that we are moving forward.
Thank you.
It's a very necessary course of study, I believe.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Gilstrap on this? They are making the request to move this from first review to first and final for the purpose of getting it in the field and activating on this. Mr. Monk?
Mine is just a logistical. I recognize that 5122, it sounds like, is expiring. are there folks in the pipeline that might be currently anticipating taking 5122 before its expiration that would then have to switch mid-study to 5123? Do we see that as an issue at all? Or?
There could be people, but Praxis has been steering people towards the 5123 for the last couple months under our guidance to make sure that we do that. We also would give extensions on time for those that may be caught in the transition period.
Good. Okay. So with that, I'm sorry, Dr. Northern?
How is the passing score? Is this a Praxis recommendation, an APTEL recommendation, or where did 151 come from?
So there's a committee that Praxis puts together of multi-states. This was a 10-state combination. We were not part of this, but Pennsylvania and North Carolina, two neighboring states, were involved in that, and they have teachers, higher institution faculty member, experts in the field, and experts at the national level that all review the scores, and then they do a standards test on it.
So in APTEL recommending that we wait a year, is this a recommendation that other states are doing as well? I mean, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, there's a community of folks trying to figure out what the cut score should be on this new test.
We do that periodically, just to make sure when we put in a new assessment. If it's the same assessment with a different cut score, sometimes we don't make that recommendation. But if there's a new assessment, we like to look and see how our state is doing with the scores. We do have the data from other states, but we like to know how Virginia teachers are doing.
Thank you.
Ms. McPherson?
I noticed from the materials that actually, and though they didn't consider it or didn't factor it in the new recommended score, but the prior score was 153, they're actually lowering it to 151. So they just didn't look at what was going on before and just revised the materials and said, well, it turns out now it's 151. Or
Right.
was there any other rationale given in relationship to the prior test?
It's not a lowering of the cuts. Different assessment. If this is the same assessment, I would agree that would look like we were lowering the
Okay.
standard. But because it's an entirely new assessment, that's just the established.
Just the
cut
number that fell out. Got
That's-
it. Okay.
Other questions or comments here? Okay, is there a motion to accept this item on first and final review, the new Praxis Family Consumer Sciences test and cut score?
I so move.
Second.
Any comments here? Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chapman? Item K.
Thank you, President Creasy, members of the board, and Superintendent Gullickson. We have here for first review a series of regulatory changes that we would ask for the board to consider that are happening subsequent to closings of periodic reviews. All of these recommendations, again, were things that the board had previously accepted as part of the periodic review process. And so we're bringing them again to you now for first review and final review next month in order to get the regulatory changes enacted and through the process. Chapter 450, which is the regulations governing professional development, the periodic review recommendation and staff still stands behind is to repeal those regulations because essentially these were designed in an era before the current structure of Chapter 23, which is the licensure regulations governing school personnel or for school personnel, and the guidance that the board has approved regarding the renewal of licenses. We think that this chapter is no longer necessary. For Chapter 650, which is the regulations governing determination of critical teacher shortage areas for the awarding of the Virginia Teaching Scholarship Loan Program, we have some minor edits, which again are really just bringing this regulatory chapter into alignment with statute. Chapter 690 is the regulations for the scoliosis screening program. We had asked the board to consider as part of the periodic review process for Chapter 250, which is the testing of sight and hearing of pupils, and also this chapter on the scoliosis screening program, that the board consider combining those two chapters within Chapter 720, which is the regulations governing local school boards and school divisions. There is not any movement in the actual regulatory text. It's really just taking them and the decision that these don't warrant to be independent regulatory chapters subject to their own 4-year cycles of periodic review. It really just streamlines for the board and for staff when they are engaging in the periodic reviews of a single chapter, all geared toward the same regulant, which is school divisions. But there's no movement in the actual policy. And then Chapter 840, which is the Virginia Child Care Provider Scholarship Program. Since this is in fact a scholarship program, in consultation with OAG, this chapter is exempt as a grant of funds from the Administrative Process Act, and so does not actually require a regulatory chapter. The policy that the board has devised in these regulations are really adopted from the Department of Social Services when these regulations transferred over. Will just be put into a document for staff in order to award the scholarship program.
Are there any questions for Mr. Chapman on this item? Okay. Thank you. We will accept this for first review and see you in September. Thank you. Dr. Hollins, you're up.
Good morning, President Creasy, board members, and Superintendent Gullickson. I bring before you today item L for first review, are revisions to the guidelines on heat-related illness prevention, which the board is required to biannually update. However, given legislation, in 2025, the Code of Virginia was amended to add some additional sections which directed the board to make sure that each local school board shall develop an update in accordance with the guidelines, policies on student-athlete extreme heat safety and protection, which would be required to account for multiple areas of increased safety practice and safeguarding student health and wellness. The department worked with an interdisciplinary stakeholder group to review and provide feedback for these guidelines, and the team of content experts consisted of athletic coaches, division-wide athletic directors, school nurses, representatives from the Virginia High School League, the Virginia Department of Health, and the Virginia Department of Education, as well as local division stakeholders, including teachers, nurses, administrators, and athletic directors. Upon board approval, the revised guidelines will be posted and submitted to the Virginia Regulatory Town Hall in accordance with provisions of the Administrative Process Act to garner additional stakeholder feedback. The Superintendent of Public Instruction recommends that the Virginia Board of Education accept these for first review. And I just want to note, thank you so much, President Creasy. We've identified a technical issue that's impacted our spacing and character replacements in our track changes version. So we will get this cleaned up and posted. So the clean version will be on APA and will also be provided for your final review protocol. Thank you so much.
I just want to ask something quickly, Dr. Hollins. We are in a very critical sports season right now, and I'm just wondering if it would be best if the board go ahead and move this first and final to get it in the hands of school divisions as fast as we can. I mean, you have completed the process with stakeholders, if I understand that correctly.
That is correct, and of course I defer to the board's position on this, but you are correct. We're getting calls and inquiries for information. As you can see, the updated guidance has a lot of great additional safety protocol that, given the weather here in the Commonwealth, might still be necessary for a few more weeks. And so, of course, I defer to you all, but we are happy to move forward with first and final review today and to support the field accordingly.
Is there a motion to support first and final review and allow the department to do any technical edits necessary?
Second.
Okay. Any questions or comments here?
I as a comment, I appreciate you recognizing that we should move this forward quicker.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. Dr. Ackerman?
Aye.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Dr. Northern?
Aye.
Mr. Hanson?
Aye.
Ms. McPherson?
Aye.
Ms. Kilgore?
Aye.
Ms. Ashton?
Aye.
Mr. Monk?
Aye.
And chair votes aye. Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much for your commitment to student safety. We really appreciate it.
Okay, right now we are going to take a quick 5-minute bio break and we will be right back. Thanks. we're back and we are ready to move to item M. And first review of proposed 25-26 proficiency cut scores. Jason's going to join too.
Yes.
Good. Welcome, team.
Yes. So good afternoon, board members. So we gave a quite robust presentation yesterday around proficiency cut scores, and we received some questions about the process. And so we want to dive deep to ensure that everyone has an understanding of how we got here and look at the bigger picture for cut scores and the why. And so just to talk a little bit about the process, we have our director of assessment, Mr. Ellis. He's going to go over kind of how this happened. He's going to go over the process a little bit, and then I'm going to follow up with some key responses to some of our constituents. So, Mr. Ellis.
Good morning, everyone. So this previously, years past, we used a method for standard setting referred to as a Angolf or modified Angolf process. And so slightly different than what we did this year, working off of an ID matching process, which I know the board has received many presentations on over the last, I guess, 8 or 9 months or so. And so prior to this year, our participants at standard setting utilized a test form, and a literal form that was used. And they looked at that form, and then they made some judgments about where performance would fall on that form for that particular subject area or grade level. Well, the ID matching process, a little bit different in regards to they look at a set of items that reside in our item bank. Those items are ordered from least difficult to most difficult. And our participants, and this year, again, a difference, we had both educator experts as well as community member experts, a change from what we have historically had. And so this year they looked at this ordered item set and said, where do we see the change from a performance level perspective, fail basic to proficient to advanced, where do we see a change in those items? And that's where we would expect student performance to fall or to change as we look at that set of items. Again, this set of items is representative of the item bank, both in difficulty and content. So again, all of those being some changes in our process from what we did this year to what we have done historically. The makeup of the panels and of each individual committee, the number of participants, about what we have normally had, except this year, as I mentioned, we did have the addition of community members, which really brought forth a whole new dimension to the standard setting that provided a great deal of value, I think, to everyone that participated, to have that perspective in the room. And as part of the conversations, the community members were great partners in this process. So I look at that as a real positive from this experience this year. In relationship to how these items, or how these things have been brought to the board and such, the board was more involved in our process this year than what I have been familiar with in previous years, in terms of understanding the process and being involved in selecting the process and approving what we were doing. But in regards to everything that is happening at this point, and with the adoption of cut scores or the anticipated adoption of cut scores or board approve of the cut scores, we're very similar to things that we have done in the past. So I look forward to the conversation today. I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. If you have any for me at this point, I certainly will be around if you have them later. But I look forward to the conversation today and moving forward.
Mr. Ellis, I have a question for you.
Sure.
So the constituency that made up the standard setting committees, I think we stated in our document, so we had 70-some% were division representation, school division representation.
Sure.
Teachers, administrators, reading specialists. Okay, so am I correct in saying that division level superintendent or someone at the central office in a division needs to sign off on that person being on the committee, or no?
So in the process that we had this year, which a little bit different than what we've had in the past, that was not a requirement for application into the committees this year.
Okay.
Applicants completed one application process for just to submit the information to the agency for review, and then they also completed an expert task. The individuals that came from a school division had to do that.
So at any point were they required to let their school division know that they were participating? Not technically?
Only if they would have needed to request time off, or if they had an obligation within their school division that they needed, coverage for.
But the
or such.
expectation would be that they would likely make at least their principal know, or their immediate supervisor know, right?
I would think that would happen, but there's no way under the process that we use this year that I could tell you that absolutely happened.
So in other words, it shouldn't be a surprise to school divisions that they have participants on the standard setting committee. It shouldn't.
Yeah, I would have been sure to let the folks that I worked for know, but I can't ensure that happened, statewide for everyone that participated.
And I just want to kind of double down on one of the things that you mentioned, both the committee selection process from the application itself to the board taking an actual vote on or modified ANGOF versus ID matching versus, I think we had one other item or one other process related. What was the other one?
Well,
ID matching,
ANGOF, ID
and
matching.
there was a third one.
Bookmark.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. We actually took a vote on that. If I'm not mistaken, I think Mr. Domaleski was here the day that we did that. In my opinion, there was nothing about this process that has been a surprise.
The board approved the ID matching process at a board meeting. That is accurate.
Thank you.
Can I just add a little bit more? Because I know that, from a lot of our constituents, they're asking about the impact. And in the data and when the presentation I talked about yesterday about impact, we could show statewide impact, but it's not going to tell you the story about what's going to happen in this school division A or school division B. And so we're actually running impacts, how this would impact them for all of the school divisions. And then we're going to go out to every region, and I'm taking my accountability and assessment team because we need to look at how this is going to impact each school division and the level of support that they're going to need for their schools, because it helps us at the state level ensure that we have the capacity to do it. And it also helps the school division begin to plan. And so we could put up a graph of this is how it's going to impact the state, but it's not going to tell you the story about the school and the division in Tidewater or in Central Virginia. We have to get better at going deeper with the data. And then there was also the question about, we read from a constituent regarding the number of items correct, and then, deriving a score just based off of the number. And in the presentation yesterday, we talked about the computer adaptive test, and the idea is that the questions have different difficulty levels. And so it's not about a number. You're given 20 questions, and if you get 15 of them right, you get a score. It's about how many of the difficult questions did they answer correctly, points are awarded, how many of the medium questions, how many of the low-level questions. And so it's not testing with just giving a piece of paper and, it's not those type of traditional tests. Yes, we still do have some of those for the end-of-course assessments, but when we're talking specifically about our grades 3 to 8 reading and math, they're computer adaptive and they adapt to each student. So it's not just 20 question items, you get so many right, then that's your score. And so that also needs to be taken into consideration.
Madam President, is it okay to make a comment here?
Dr. Ackerman?
Yes. I just want to first thank everybody who participated in coming up with the cut scores. I know that was probably a lot of work, and there's probably a lot of angst around it. I appreciate that you point out that the impact is a different conversation, really, right? We need to have the scores first and then kind of determine that impact. But I do want to express, I like to believe part of my role on the board is speaking for the voice of those with special needs. And in my own experience, I've been in education long enough to remember where we didn't hold students with special needs to a standard. And I know sometimes these special populations are the ones that get most afraid, right, of what this might mean to them. But in my experience, people they raise to the bar that we set. And so I'm excited that we are doing that. And I just wanted to make that comment. Again, I think impact is a kind of another conversation, and I know we'll be having that. But from my understanding and all the conversations I've had and read, most of the impact is support. And how can we help, for example, the population of students with special needs is just one of the many examples to be successful in these new cut scores and the new reporting mechanisms that we will get from the cut scores that I'm so excited about to make data-informed decisions for both individual subgroups, for individual schools, for ultimately that individual student. So anyway, I just wanted to express some of that with some of my background, because I know there's a lot of angst in our world of kids with special needs around raising the bar. And again, I was there when we didn't have one, and we could have done better. So thank you.
Dr. Northern, did you have a question? Ms. McPherson?
So in a prior presentation, the board was advised that the department was going to run stats that would give us a clear indication of where schools were going to fall based upon the new cut scores, so that we could be prepared for the fact that the public will want us to respond to how we're going to deal with impact. So I do think it's very important that we run those numbers, and so that we are able to tell the school divisions, as your department is going out, this is where we think you're going to fall based upon the prior numbers as we run them side by side, because that was a transparency that we as a board, we were expecting. So we want to make sure that we're dealing with impact, but impact based upon what those numbers are really predicting where the students are going to fall. And then second, I think a lot of the board members are clearly of the opinion that current 12th graders should not be impacted by the rollout. And I think at some point we have to say that, because there are students right now who are planning to go to college, you know, who there are ones who are looking at their job opportunities, and whether they pass or not is going to impact whether or not those future plans are going to be put in place within a 12-month period. So I think it is really important, based upon what was done before you were hired, that we get the side-by-side numbers and that we look at them and we begin to talk to school divisions and say, this is what it looks like based upon an internal run, because that's kind of what we were promised.
Ms. McPherson, you're absolutely right. We were promised that, and previous leadership didn't deliver on it.
Right.
This is happening now. It will be delivered to us.
Okay.
We, just like Ms. Booker-Dwyer is saying, it is critical in this process, completely agree, and that will be coming to us, and that will be available to the public for their viewing as well.
Right. I don't have any doubt about Ms. Gullickson's leadership, because I know that she's on it. I just wanted to remind the board that that's kind of what we're expecting. So
Absolutely.
No problem. I mean, I know that she's going to attend to that.
Yes, thank you. Ms. Ashton?
Yep, I also am incredibly excited about the progress. Think that we are moving in the right direction. And giving your comment yesterday, think, just worried about seniors in that they're planning for their next college and career phase, just making sure that they are not, that they have the support and the clarity around the impact.
Yes, we don't want this to be punitive. This is about seeing if our students met the standards, and if not, how can we support? And that's why we're running those impact numbers by division, because statewide, it doesn't give you that clear picture. And then like I said, we will be out on the road with the assessment team, with the accountability team, walking through like how is this going to look for your division? So this is a very different level and approach to support than what has been done previously.
Other comments, Mr. Monk?
Yeah, I would agree. I think my conversations with educators are not, in many cases, not all, but not that we don't want to raise the bar. I think we all know as teachers that raising the bar is going to, at the end of the day, raise outcomes for students. It's what does that look like, and what is the communication around that? Many folks, parents, are not in these rooms understanding, hey, this is the reality of where students are now. No matter what you say the cut score is, this is the reality of where our learners are. But there's concern in the field if that's not communicated well and with precision, that there may be this perception that all of a sudden students have dropped in 1 year. And so I think having that information, going into those regions, communicating that, but then also working to make sure that the languaging around what other stakeholders are hearing is important. We don't want the perception that XYZ school district or XYZ superintendent or school board member has failed students. Right now, it's, hey, this is where we're going in the new direction and how we're encouraging some lift among those assessments.
Well, I think I would also follow that with, it's not just, we're not stopping at just the communication, right? It's about how we're coming in and supporting. And I do think that from a school board member's perspective, I would want to be able to say, yes, we are here, but here are the supports that we're getting from the Department of Education because we are here, and we are fully embracing those opportunities that the department is helping to provide for us to improve. So I do think that's very, very important to talk. Yes, we got to communicate, no doubt. But the bigger picture here is how are we successfully moving schools and students from point A, wherever they're falling, to the most successful that they can possibly be. And so that's the point of all of this. So, Mr. Monk.
And then the district's understanding what that scaffolding and support looks like too, and how that can integrate to them completely. I think the communication between the district and the agency on what those supports are. Hey, this is where we are. Here's what we're going to get. Provide you in support-wise to get where we want to be, for sure.
Yeah, there was a comment that Ms. Booker-Dwyer made yesterday that I think is important, that support is not a one-size-fit-all, and that each division is going to need something different. And so communication has to be over-communication, but I think just for the board, and I think for the folks who are watching, it's not a one-size-fit-all in terms of support. Everyone's not going to get the exact same thing. I hope that they will get what they need, and so we've got to appreciate the flexibility in the team's approach to do that.
Dr. Northern.
I'm just going to echo all the on-point comments made by my colleagues here, and the transparency function that we've talked about ad nauseum on the board. Excited to hear that we're going to see how these data are going to play out with the most recent data that we have. And just want to say again that a higher bar, and this is a communications piece that we're going to amp up and continue to amp up, a higher bar doesn't mean that your child is doing worse. It actually means that we raised the bar to help them prepare for college, career, and life, right? It's the honesty gap that we've had for so long, but the honesty gap's become kind of a cliche, but really it means your child is not prepared for college, career, and life. And so I think just saying what the test score is, right? It's not a number. It actually means something, right? And we look at the research and we see that proficiency is tied on NAEP to all of these very positive outcomes, which I've talked about before at this very meeting. I would love to see, for parents, infographics showing the old and the new scores. I'd love to see videos of our state superintendent explaining to families on our family channel, like, here's what this means, don't be alarmed, don't be worried, like that we're resetting here as a department, we're resetting as a state. I mean, this is what's happened in the past, and we're all in this together, right? This is not, it doesn't matter if you have an R or a D after your political, orientation. We're doing the right thing by kids, right? We're just doing the right things by kids. And I think that the more that we can communicate that, we've said all along, this is not to be punitive. It's about support. It's about being actually to identify the schools instead of saying 90-some% are accredited and everybody's doing great, wonderful. It really is about identifying where we have the greatest needs across the Commonwealth. So I just want to just up the ante again on the transparency. We're at a very critical stage here, and we're not going to stop pressing the accelerator on the transparency front, and we're not going to stop pressing the accelerator on communicating about what we're actually doing with parents, with families, as a Commonwealth. Who cares where you are politically? This is the right thing for children. So let's keep making sure that we're explaining that to families in a way that resonates with them, in a way that we can all stand proud of what we're doing, what we've been working so hard doing. And so anyway, I know we're at a touchy point and it's sensitive, but I just wanted to reiterate, I think we're all on the same page here.
I do think it's important to reiterate what the governor said yesterday, and that is returning Virginia to the shining light, the #1 state for education. I look at that as my job sitting right here. I look at that as all of our jobs sitting right here. Virginia has been a star in education for so long, and we all have a duty to get us back there. Any other comments here? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, we will move to Ms. Berta again. And I should have said, we will accept this item for first review and see you at a subsequent meeting. Thank you.
Good morning again, President Creasy, members of the board, Superintendent Gullickson. Before you today is first review of some changes that are recommended related to the guidelines for the School Construction Assistance Program. As a reminder, during the 2025 General Assembly session, we were fortunate to be the recipients of some additional funding to support school construction program, the assistance program, by way of an additional $120 million appropriated in fiscal year 25, along with a transfer of $50 million from the Literary Fund, and then an additional $110 million to fiscal year 26 for school construction assistance programs. So we have quite a bit of funding to allocate to school divisions. And so we are coming to you after quite a bit of time of having engagement with school divisions, superintendents, school business officials, our school facility folks, with some requests on allowing some flexibilities to better use that fund resource to them and support their school divisions. So before you today are some modifications in response to that conversation and feedback. You have the document. There is a redlined version in your document along with a clean version, so you can see what it looks like, but I will highlight a few of the changes. Just as a reminder, it is the board's charge to develop guidelines associated with this program, so this is why this is coming before you for first review. Several of the changes, as you may recall, the board made a decision during the last revision to allow for regional CTE programs. In response to several communications from school divisions, we are making the recommendation that not only we continue regional CTE programs, but we also allow for school-based CTE programs that align with the VOE high demand criteria. So one of the changes you will see is just adding school-based CTE programs that align with the VOE in addition to the regional CTE programs that you all adopted in the last revisions. They can apply for up to 3 school divisions, 3 school projects during one application period, with the award going to the highest scoring project from each division first due to the increased level of funding to enable more schools, CTE programs and regional CTE programs to receive funding. Another modification is currently the program allows for projects $1 million or higher. We are making the recommendation that you change that to a minimum of $500,000 for an individual school project and $1 million for similar equipment replacement or upgrade projects at multiple schools. So if, for example, if they have 3 schools that need window replacements and in aggregate they are $1 million or greater, we would allow under this revision to allow that project where currently they wouldn't qualify. So that is one recommendation we are making. Also, we're making an adjustment to the point score for poor school buildings to enable some school divisions that are very short of qualifying for previous awards to potentially qualify for funding in the future. So school divisions must meet at least 65 minimum points out of a 100-point scale in order to even be considered for a project. And we have about 14 school divisions that have fallen just below. So some of these changes are in response to that to allow those schools that are just falling short of the 65-point minimum to achieve a grant opportunity. Additionally, we are looking at changing the total possible score for the identified student percentage, ISP, to enable some school divisions, again, that were short of qualifying a potential to qualify for funding. So ISP is related to our high needs population in schools, and it's a derivative for school nutrition programs. Additionally, we are making some adjustments for points awarded for the local composite index, again, to allow flexibility and possibly have some of those school divisions rise to the 65-point minimum. Also adding, as I indicated, the school-based CTE program as an eligibility criteria to score points if they meet criteria 7 of your current guidelines. Also making a recommendation to adjust the points awarded for fiscal stress designation, poverty percentage, and condition of all school buildings, again, to enable some other school divisions that are just short of qualifying to qualify. It's important to note that we only have 2 school divisions right now that are meeting the poverty percentage. So we want to make some adjustments in that criteria to allow for other possible recipients. Also lowering the total points awarded for the debt capacity, again, because there's only 2 school divisions that currently meet that to be eligible. Adding language requiring schools funded by the SCAP program to remain scheduled to be open for at least 5 years or more. So we don't want to make modifications to buildings that are potentially going to close in the next 5 years. Also changing the quarterly reimbursement dates to align with our fiscal year. This year we ran into some issues with reimbursements happening right up against our deadline with the Department of Accounts. So we want to make sure that we are making it very clear and communicative to school divisions on when they will get their funding, but also to make sure that we're compliant with our requirements. And just having them a reminder added, we've had several, and I think it's due to the transition of staff that are long-serving. There is a requirement in Virginia Code 22.1-140 that all projects that are going through a renovation or to be built are to be submitted to us as the department for awareness through our school building construction renovation application that's an SSWS. So we're adding it to this language, also going to communicate that to school divisions as a reminder so that we can make sure that folks know they still have to meet that requirement of state code. One thing that we've added, and Superintendent Gullickson and I have been talking about this too, is trying to find ways to encourage school divisions to submit innovative and creative ideas. I think everybody gets stuck in the rut often of the traditional renovation or the traditional school building. And so thinking differently how we can create learning spaces that are great for students. And so we want to encourage that through this process too. This is first review, so I'm certainly happy to answer any questions that you have. I know there will be comments and opportunity for review by our school divisions as well.
So first, I would just want to ask a couple of questions. I know that we in the past have talked about how we are able to make sure that we're spreading the wealth instead of, those school divisions that are qualifying. It's just seemingly going to a particular school division or a set of school divisions, maybe a couple, all the time, and ensuring that we are able to capture some of those more rural school divisions as well, that are in just as much need. I think it's important at the same time that we're really focused on what those enrollment trends look like. Because we know that there are several school divisions across the Commonwealth that have had to close multiple schools this year. And it's probably some of those and might not be able to capture it in this particular piece here, but if those school divisions were ones that were recipients of grants in the past in some of those buildings that are now not being used, how are we capturing that data as well?
Yeah, so one of the items that we have also added here is more of a technical requirement is we don't really have a reporting mechanism to know where folks are in the process of their receipt of the program funding. So we are asking for reporting. That is one thing that I've had conversations directly with the Secretary of Finance about. Being able to articulate where people are in the process is really important. So there is a reporting component that will go along with the awards. So school divisions that are the recipients will have to circle back with us and tell us progress on their project. Are they still on track? We have several school divisions too that have received funding, and we're trying to circle back with them to make sure that it's still necessary. As you know, we've come back to you with reallocations. So I think that goes back, just like we talked about communication on the instructional side. We just need to do a better job of instructing and communicating out to the field what the program is all about, what the expectations are, and making that very clear. To your point, been previous recipients, criteria 13 actually gives folks points if they have not been a recipient of the program in the last 2 fiscal years. So that is part of our mechanism, along with these
Wonderful.
changes we're shifting in points that we hope will continue to spread the wealth across school divisions.
Okay. Thank you. Dr.
Did you finish
Ackerman?
yours?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, and I apologize if I missed this, but I'm wondering if there's anything to incentivize the use of space that's not being utilized. I have a little bit of experience with this and going in and using unused space, and in my experience, the longer it sits unused, the more it costs to get it in use. So I don't know if there's a way to kind of help, especially with the CTE type programs being allowed to use this and the under $1 million. There's a way to incentivize some of that unused space. I don't know if I
Perhaps maybe not captured here, but I think that's something that we truly need to consider.
Sure.
Ms. McPherson?
I was looking at the point score for the programs that have not had the money in the past, and so that point score is a little lower than some of the other categories. And I'm just wondering if in the future you might want to give some consideration to raising the number of points for the school divisions that have not used the funding in the past, because I think that would be important, would be a better incentive. I think one of the things too that I'd be concerned about is where there've been a lot of school closures, receiving an application for the building of a new school, unless as a part of that, as you're gathering the information when it comes to the board, that we're really clear that that's going to be the best use of funding, because I just don't think that school divisions should just go out and build something new when they've closed it. And I think the location of where the new schools would be in terms of the students that it would serve and the impact to the economic impact to underserved communities is going to be really important as we analyze that. So I just want you to keep your eye out about that, and whether or not maybe the point score for people who have not been able to use the funding in the past should be raised.
Also, Ms. Berta, is this generally just a portion of a project? Because, just looking at the reporting section of this, we're not asking school divisions to submit receipts to us. So if they, if they're in a project that they get in $1 million grant for, but it comes in at 900,000, how does that work?
Yeah, so we're only funding 20, 30, or 40% of their overall project based on their LCI and other factors. So we are not funding the whole thing. But I do think that's where the reporting back to us is the important part, so that we can share that information to you. One of the suggestions that I have is potentially putting that report on whatever cadence on your consent agenda, just for you to have awareness of.
Perfect.
And it also provides transparency to the public. So
Perfect.
we'll work with the team to do that.
Thank you. Dr. Northern?
So I think the biggest change that we could add to these bullets is we can make for more flexible loan structures based on enrollment. So you would have some kind of enrollment-based trigger, right? In which you fall below this enrollment-based trigger, then you have to refinance the project. You have to adjust the scope of your project. You have to restructure your debt. Like, something needs to happen that, like, you fall below here, like, you're in the danger zone, and now you have to make some changes. So I think some kind of scale up or scale down, depending on those future student enrollment numbers. And I think we do this already, but maybe where we finance the first phase, right? And then options to expand, right? That if their enrollment changes or whatnot, there'll be an option to expand beyond that first phase. But whatever we can do to build in these flexible loan structures based on these trigger things, on enrollment-based triggers, I think is the piece that is sorely needed here, given what we're staring down in the state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. If we could put that as a part of our move to final review on this, that would be really helpful. Dr. Ackerman?
I just a comment. I meant to say this earlier. I just want to commend that you're casting a broader net, and the thought that went into this. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Mr. Monk?
May not be quite relevant, but I know this capital project, thinking about the application, is there first? Love the inclusion of school-based CTE. Big fan, so thank you for that. I think that will broaden the net, as Dr. Ackerman talks about. But Perkins, is there a correlation in the application process, knowing that this is for capital funds and there likely would be some type of consumables that are needed? Is there any correlation in that application where we know that their Perkins plan has this ingrained as well? Or
There is not, but we certainly could add some language about coordination, because we are looking and we're talking to school divisions in our Lunch and Learn series about blending and braiding funds. So this is a clear example of where that can serve, particularly on the CTE front. So we can add that too.
Wonderful. Thanks for all the work on this.
Yep.
Other comments here? I think this is the most robust conversation we've had about construction grants. Are you excited? I know VJ's back there super excited.
He's like, what is she agreeing to?
He's doing backflips. Thank you so much.
You.
Appreciate it. Okay, so that brings us to our presentations and written reports. I think what we're going to do, should we go ahead? You guys want to go ahead and push through? Yes. Okay. So that means Mr. Chapman, you are up, I think, for item F and G. Is that correct? From yesterday. So, okay, so this item is from yesterday's work session. We got very deep into our conversation about proficiency cut scores, and so we had to punt item F and item G to today's agenda. And so thank you, Ms. Velasquez and Mr. Chapman, for being so flexible in your schedules to be here with us today. Thank you.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much, President Creasy. This item is essentially something that the board is required to do by statute. And so, in reviewing the statutory requirements as part of the standards of quality, particularly Standard 6, the board is required to adopt a statewide comprehensive unified long-range plan based on data collection, analysis, and evaluation, and do so in coordination with state participation. The board did that in 2023, and the current comprehensive plan is in effect through, I believe, 2028. The statute also requires that biennially the board review this plan and adopt any necessary revisions. So where we are today is providing this plan again for the board. We are in 2025, so we are in that second year, and so the board is required to at very least review. And if there are any suggestions for changes, of course, staff will be willing to bring those back to the board for consideration before adoption at the end of the year. In brief, the current comprehensive plan is composed of a couple of different statutory sections. And so, in addition to stating the purpose of the comprehensive plan as designed in statute, carrying forward the board's mission, there's a fairly extended objectives of public education in Virginia. That, I think, is a fairly good distillation of the statutory responsibilities that are scattered across the code and really what public education is designed to do. And then also an analysis, as of 2023, of the extent to which the objectives of public education are being achieved. But the real focus, I think, of the comprehensive plan in this instance is on the board's educational priorities and goals from the 2024, through 2029 period. And so what we have over the next few slides, and I will go through this sort of quickly because, again, this is high level and just the overview, is what those goals are. But I would certainly encourage the board to be mindful in reviewing this of how this integrates specifically with the next item on the SOQ prescriptions, where you will get a detailed dive into the board's 2023 prescriptions on the standards of quality, and specifically many of the activities that have happened in support of what the board said in 2023 that it would like to, what it would like to see occur in Virginia, and how those things combine, basically that the board's vision, as reflected in this 2023 document, is underway, and this is representative of the board's work to date. So that first priority and goal is to set and help every learner meet high expectations. This is a lot of the items that the board hears, obviously from the SOL to assessments, the item, the item just a few ago. All of this is part of the board's activities to make sure that expectations are high for every learner across the state. And not just in the K-12 environment, but a big component under the bullets in that is that this really includes our birth to 5, learners across the state. And so providing, the board's efforts to provide feedback and oversight for the implementation of the Early Childhood Statewide Measurement Improvement System, otherwise known as VQB5, in order to ensure that even our youngest learners have high-quality learning experiences, and certainly to support that system in the best way we can through the numerous things that the department does under the board's direction in order to make all that work happen. The second priority and goal was to support learning loss recovery, ensuring transparency and communication of formative data systems with families. I think one of the big efforts, even though it's not listed under this, but it is listed under the previous, is the board's work to implement a new accreditation system and accountability system. Obviously, in 2023, that work was still in the very infant stages, but in September of 2024, we had those regulations go live, and this brand new accreditation and accountability system was rolled out and is still in the process of getting rolled out in order to support that recovery, make sure that the data is clear, and that the tie specifically between student performance and the data that we receive on school performance are more unified and integrated and together. The third priority and goal, to ensure that every K-12 student has a high-quality licensed teacher, includes the numerous apprenticeship models that are being deployed throughout the state, the alternative licensure pathways. So I think of the iTeach, the Arlington Montessori program that the board has approved over the last few years. Ensuring that the current traditional alternative pathways produce localized and sustainable high-quality educator pipelines. Mr. Rob Gilstrap and his shop is involved throughout the state in making sure that the Grow Your Own programs are up and running and are active in trying to make sure that those teachers are not just in high-need areas, but also being grown in those high-need areas as well. The fourth, to create innovative pathways for every learner. Certainly, if you had asked in the middle of 2024, the focus, I think, would have been largely on the lab school. And the board has since moved into numbers of approvals of lab schools, but also all of the work for alternative seat time flexibility that the board has considered, the items today, the items in May. All of those have been done to support this innovative pathways for every learner. The advancement of safe and healthy schools. As number 5, the board continues to approve construction projects, administer the Virginia Literary Fund, publicizing and prioritizing the school construction assistance program, providing opportunities for school divisions to develop division-wide plans for assessing and addressing threats to security. A lot of those, the implementation of statutory requirements, are work that the department is undergoing on the direction of the board, and the board will continue to see over the next few months. And certainly, statewide mental health strategies, as well as implementing health school policy guidance, and the board has seen a couple of items over the last few months implementing legislation to that effect. Certainly, I think, a big theme of empowering parents as partners, from everything from the school performance framework to ensuring that data and materials support the board's goals there. And the research toward a student-based funding formula, I think, has been a major focus of the board's priorities back in 2023 and has been picked up as legislative concerns in the General Assembly that Ms. Velasquez will speak about soon. So in terms of the next steps, this has been the overview. I think the board has at least fulfilled the review component, but we were asking that the board will reflect and provide
Thank you so much, Mr.
Thank you.
Chapman. Does anybody have questions for him on this? Okay. Ms.
Thank you.
Velasquez.
Well, it's still morning, so I'm going
It
to say
is.
good morning.
5 more minutes.
President Creasy, members of the board, Superintendent Gullickson. Last time I came before you, I stood between you and the end of the day. Today, I stand between you and lunch. So I'm convinced that I'm not the superintendent's favorite person. But I will try to be brief because I know you've heard a lot of information. So I have for you today. Well, let me introduce myself because there are some folks that are new that haven't been here before when I presented. I'm Melissa Velasquez. I'm Assistant Superintendent for Government Relations. I'm here today to present to you on the standards of quality and the progress that's been made towards your 2023 prescriptions. On slide 1, you can see we've outlined for you that this is a constitutional requirement of this board. One of the only boards in the Constitution of Virginia is that you have an obligation to prescribe the standards of quality, or SOQ, for the school divisions, and those prescriptions are subject only to revision by the General Assembly. We provided for you links to the statutes that cover the SOQ for your reading pleasure. Some of the standards are quite lengthy, but it is the foundation for public education in the Commonwealth, so it's very critical to the work you do here. As required by the Constitution and the Code of Virginia, every 2 years you have to review the standards and you make decisions on whether prescriptions are needed or whether things can remain as they are. In conducting the review, you generally seek public comment, including those suggestions and concerns from stakeholders such as educators, parents, the school division employees, students, and the community at large. On slide 3, the language regarding your constitutional authority is laid out there. In prescribing the standards, as you do so and subject to revision by the General Assembly, you also have to provide the cost of changing those standards, because anything changed in the SOQ is associated with funding. And that's a constitutional requirement, just not a statutory requirement. And again, on slide 4, the code language is laid out for you as well. On slide 5, each of the standards are listed for you, which each one provides for everything from staffing and ratios to the accreditation and graduation requirements and compliance requirements by the school division, as well as their policy requirements. So in 2023, we came before the board at that time, and the board, through bipartisan efforts, arrived at the 7 prescriptions that are listed there for you, and we're going to go over each of those prescriptions individually and the progress that's been made on those. So the first prescription was for a student-centered funding formula. And as Jim mentioned, that's been a focus of the board. And so the board recommended in 2023 that the General Assembly investigate and consider a model for a student-weighted funding formula, and then for purposes of determining the required state share to fund the standards of quality based on that student-weighted formula. And then in response to that, the General Assembly has formed a joint subcommittee to study elementary and secondary education funding. They continue to work, and JLARC supports that, and the committee continues to evaluate the provisions of JLARC's recommendations from 2023 for K-12 funding. And the governor and the General Assembly also, through FY24 and 25 budgets, began some incremental targeted student-weighted funding for ELL students and special education students in the amount of $1.2 billion. As slide 9 indicates, BDOE is in the process. We'll issue an RFP to seek a consultant for data analytics to support modeling, because that's an extensive task, to provide support to the General Assembly for the weighted funding formulas. And that consultant will be used for the funding model to provide options to the Joint Subcommittee. In addition, the General Assembly and the governor allocated 2 positions to the department in an amount of $300,000 to support that work and that modeling. Prescription 2 that the board proposed and prescribed back in 2023 involved the Literacy Act, math acceleration, and addressing learning loss. The board recommended for the Assembly to provide flexible funding for innovations in learning, and that to provide greater support to literacy, mathematics, counseling, learning acceleration, and recovery from learning loss. In response to that prescription, there's All in Virginia program, $418 million in general funds across 3 fiscal years were used to accomplish those goals, including dedicated high-intensity academic tutoring, accelerated expansion of the VLA, the Literacy Act, and combating chronic absenteeism. And as the superintendent noted yesterday, we're being recognized nationally for the progress made in chronic absenteeism. $7.1 million was allocated in general funds for targeted extended school year services and year-round programs. $300,000 per school was available, up to $400,000 for certain schools with condition status. Over $600,000 for planning grants, up to $15,000 for each school division who wanted to pursue a creation of a new extended enriched school year or year-round programs. And they can use any of those remaining funds out of that allotment for instructional delivery for those governance models. $11 million was provided in fiscal year 25. In fiscal year 26, $1 million was provided in general funds to improve student performance in mathematics. Those include grant distribution and $10 million to school divisions for the mathematics curriculum and high-quality instructional materials, competency-based mastery learning models, and a regional network of support. The $1 million in funding to support expanded access to online and advanced mathematics programming and innovative math credentialing options. But again, $1 million in funding to support the additional 5 positions specifically to support math instruction, and the department will also oversee and establish a mathematics advisory task force. $500,000 in general funds were provided for innovation grants, proposing innovative concepts for up to $50,000. 29 proposals have been received, and 10 proposals were selected, covering 6 out of 8 superintendent regions currently. And lastly, on that, slide 12, $750,000 in FY25 and $900,000 in FY26 have been allotted to support economically disadvantaged students taking advanced placement and dual enrollment in the IB and Cambridge courses. On slide 13, you can see additional efforts have been made in support of this prescription, with $800,000 in respective fiscal years for middle school teacher corps to help the school divisions with their shortage area middle and high school mathematics, technical assistance for school divisions with a specific focus on implementing House Bill 2686 from the 2025 General Assembly session for the math acceleration grants. They were awarded 7 to school divisions in June of 2025, 1.9 million in additional funding will be available in the second round of the grant applications this year. And again, there is collaboration between DOE, the Virginia Community College System, and the State Council for Higher Education to implement the College and Career Ready Virginia program. That's beginning this fall, and that will further expand opportunities for students in the areas of dual enrollment at no cost to their families. Slide 14, revisions to the board's textbook adoption process have been made to include high-quality instructional materials. That was made pursuant to House Bill 2777 from the previous General Assembly session. And then that full implementation of VLA K through 8 has occurred, including teacher training and new literacy screeners. $34.3 million in state and $30 million, in federal funds to accelerate the launch of VLA and implement evidence-based literacy instruction has also been utilized. Moving on to prescription 3 from 2023, seat time flexibility and work-based learning. In 2023, the board at the time recommended the General Assembly to require high school students to have the opportunity to pursue individual academic and career-based experiences, as well as have the opportunity to earn an industry-recognized credential or participate in meaningful work-based experiences, college readiness, and military readiness. The high schools have to use their flexible scheduling and competency-based seat time flexibility to achieve this. So as a result, House Bill 1477 from 2024 required the board to provide that maximum flexibility, and I believe that was discussed earlier today. In May of 25, you approved the seat time flex kit, and department staff mentioned today that there's a huge technical support effort that will be rolled out. Further, in regard to seat time flexibility, there have been 40% of the innovation grants that have been awarded have noted their plan to utilize the seat time flex in their innovations, and any of that funding mentioned earlier for targeted extended school year can be used to support these innovative approaches. In regards to work-based learning, in December 23, the Virginia Office of Education and Economics collaborated with the Board of Workforce Development and stakeholders to publish the high demand occupations dashboard. And then 2024, the board, you as a board reviewed stakeholder feedback and changes to the definition and experiences for high quality work-based learning. And Anthony has mentioned in 2025, you adopted a new definition. And in May of 2025, House Bill 2454 has required the board to include work-based learning within the 3E readiness framework. So in May of 2025, you adopted to incorporate high-quality work-based learning into the employment section of the 3E readiness framework. For the 24-25 year, you as a board added additional IB courses to expand access for the IB diploma students as they work towards graduation. There's a process for that where student credentials are evaluated on an ongoing basis and prescribed criteria for those graduation requirements, as the credentials that meet the criteria are presented to the board annually for approval, and that document posted with the guidance on the department's website and the Virginia Regulatory Town Hall. And as the slide indicates, there's always going to be further collaboration between the Office of VOEE, SHEV, and the Community College System to define those credentials of value, develop the criteria for the review and evaluation of the credentials to align to the high demand occupations in the Commonwealth. Further General Assembly action resulted in House Bill 1087 from 2024 with a College and Career Ready program that requires each school board to offer qualified high school students, their local school divisions, access to completion of the Passport program, which involves 15 dual enrollment credits, or the Uniform Certificate of General Studies program that involves 30 credits at a public institution of higher ed at no cost to the student, and that's very critical. These courses are not electives, they're college level general ed credits that transfer to every public school, college or university in Virginia. 2023 prescription 4 resulted in the board recommending that the General Assembly provide funding for a statewide IEP system to ensure that school divisions can meet the diverse needs of our students with disabilities. As a result of that, General Assembly action for Senate Bill 220 requires the department to develop and review, update as necessary every 5 years, and make available to each school board an IEP writing, facilitation, tracking, and transfer system known as the Virginia IEP. It's currently a voluntary statewide IEP system. School divisions are not mandated, but they voluntarily participate, and we have 117 of the 131 school divisions participating. And DOE staff and Dr. Holland's office continue to support the remaining school divisions regarding that adoption process. And lastly, on that slide, an additional $5 million in general funding is supporting a new version of Virginia IEP. The fifth prescription made in 2022 regards the teacher pipeline development. The board recommended to address teacher vacancy rates for school divisions experiencing a teacher vacancy rate of more than 3%. And so, as a result of that prescription, changes coming out of both the 24 and 25 General Assembly sessions supported Governor Youngkin's Executive Directive 3 addressing teacher shortages in Virginia. 51 school divisions identified where they have a vacancy rate over 3%. 43 of those 51 divisions participated in an apprenticeship program or the I Teach alternative route to address vacancies. And since 2024, there have been 500 teachers licensed by a total of 61 school divisions through the local eligibility license, which is a new alternative pathway resulting from 2024 legislation. In addition, for the teacher vacancy and pipeline development, we provided for you a list of bills from the 24 session, everything from making things easier in the sense of eliminating the VCLA and different changes for the provisional career switcher program for special ed. Bills listed also from the 2025 session that I went over with you in May, I believe it was, of additional items for the teacher pathways to provide outstanding teachers in a more compressed timeline so we can address those vacancies. And that list of bills goes on to slide 27. They're there for you. They're linked. I know, lunchtime. So I'm not going to read through them, but I did go through them individually back in May. So you have that as well. And slide 29, we'll jump to prescription 6, related to the board's recommendation for appropriate funding for VDOE to purchase a statewide student information system. Unfortunately, that proposal for statewide student information system was cut during the budget process, but the department did leverage ESSER money, state funds, to build a statewide student attendance data dashboard, and phase 1 of that should be completed by December of this year. Lastly, I think prescription 7, the board recommended to consolidate the Ask-Risk add-on program and prevention and the prevention, intervention, and remediation program to create a new at-risk program under the SOQ, and that at-risk and prevention intervention funding was successfully combined into the at-risk SOQ funding, so that was a big success there. So those were your prescriptions from 2023. While the SOQ may not have been revised in each of those instances, a significant amount of work you can see has been done through the governor's office, through the department, and through the General Assembly to accomplish the goals of the board. And so your next meeting, you will then move into your phase of deciding what prescriptions, if any, you want to make for the 2025 year under your constitutional obligation. Those prescriptions would then get transmitted to the governor's office and the General Assembly for the upcoming 2026 General Assembly session and biennial budget process. I'll be glad to answer any questions. I don't know what's on the menu.
Melissa,
Yes, ma'am.
So at this point, what would you like from the board as far as how we prepare for September?
I mean, I'll certainly defer to the superintendent if she has outlined that process, but the most significant thing is if you're not familiar with what's in the SOQ, that may be the good place to start. We provided you for links for that. And what the critical needs that this board has been focusing on for this year. We want to see how we can accomplish incorporating that into the SOQ if it's not there. We'd love to receive some concrete ideas of things that kids need for success, and that we want to put that before the General Assembly as this board's priority.
So what that means is we have homework. So in order to prepare for September, we would ask that you do some studying up there and come with some things that you can help us to discuss and come to consensus on.
Yeah, so now I'm giving you homework and stood between lunch. I'm a winner.
It's good. And our team is certainly available if you want to gut check so that you don't come with ideas that are already baked. These have been pretty bold legislative sessions with a lot of bipartisan wins on eliminating unnecessary hoops, empowering principals with more autonomy to make some decisions, and really design models that work better for students. So consider us your thought partners as well. If you're leaning towards a concept and want to gut check, does this already exist? Has it previously existed? Melissa has a wealth of knowledge as well of past actions and maybe why they are no longer on the books. Obviously, Jim has been before the board on the monthly basis of old regs and chapters that are now outdated to not bring them right back. And so consider our team here to be a good, useful resource as well.
Absolutely.
Any comments here?
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Velasquez. We
Always a
appreciate it.
pleasure.
And so with that, we are coming to the end of our meeting. And I would just ask, before I wrap us up, if anybody has any necessity to speak on current issues that you have on your top of your mind. No? Okay. So as we know from our executive sessions, our licensure cases, it usually lends us to thinking about some things deeper. And I know all of us would appreciate it if the superintendent would be so kind as to remind division superintendents of the requirement in the law and the importance of background checks. In compliance with such code, not just background checks, but also child abuse and neglect registry searches. We're seeing a rise of inappropriate conduct. I'm sure you've all seen through the news. I shouldn't say a lot, a rise in inappropriate conduct is the best way to put it, by educators with students, whether that be through social media channels or otherwise. We just need to ensure the utmost safety for students in every way that we can possibly control. Additionally, I appreciate board members helping us navigate through the public hearings on the 2025 draft expanded high school science standards. The department will get those comments compiled, and we'll be able to see all of those, get the comments about those standards put up on our website for further input, and we will be seeing those likely sometime in the October-ish timeframe. Final thought here, we are hearing some chatter around folks, school divisions, school boards opposing the cell phone free education law. We expect divisions to comply with all laws and executive orders, and that includes those governing boards. So I know our directors of policy implementation across the Commonwealth and school divisions work hard to ensure their boards are in compliance with all of our laws and all executive orders, and I would just encourage school boards to comply with the law as well. And I think with that, Superintendent Gullickson, you don't have anything that you'd like to add, right? Or do you?
Well, in case you missed the press conference yesterday, tune in again because we are just so proud of our students rising to the higher expectations that you have heard here today and yesterday, and just a huge nod to the collaborative effort from our coaches, to our instructional coaches, to our faith partners, to our nonprofit community, after-school partners, teachers, principals, superintendents, governing board members, parents, families, and everybody else is coming around our students to help us move the needle and really ensure that they're ready for life. So thank you to the board for your leadership. And if you missed yesterday, check out our website, check out the board documents, because we covered a lot on the upcoming supports and how we can continue to move the needle for every student in the Commonwealth.
And with that, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.